My favorite Pokemon is Sceptile. Other than the fact that it was the first Pokemon I ever had, and is my favorite color, I just think it has such a cool personality and sleek design. It's what I associate with the idea of a partner Pokemon.
My favorite Pokemon is Sceptile. It was the first Pokemon I ever had. The first Pokemon I ever picked was Trico in Pokemon Ruby, so I have a lot of nostalgic attachment to it. And also I really think lizards and reptiles are super awesome, and it's got leaf blades on its arms that just cuts things out. It's cool. It's so cool.
I have to say my favorite Pokemon is definitely Ghastly. Most people would say Gengar or Haunter. The whole line is actually my favorite, but Ghastly himself is just this playful, fun, prank-giving Pokemon who's always trying to have a good time, which is why I picked him as my mascot as well for my YouTube channel, because all my stuff is just parody and it's just fun, and that's what he likes, and I like that too.
Okay, so my favorite Pokemon is Darkrai. What I like a lot about Darkrai is not only does it have an incredibly cool design, it's a very, very good Pokemon in general, but it attacks you when you're at your weakest. It attacks you when you can't really fight back or do anything. It attacks you in your sleep. And of course, it's not really a bad guy. It's not evil, as we saw in the movie. It's not a bad Pokemon, but it can hit you when you're your most vulnerable. So that's why I like Darkrai a lot.
My favorite Pokemon overall is Infernape. I'm someone whose favorite Pokemon of each region usually becomes the starter I pick because it's the one that I'm the most attached to. And Infernape so far is still the Pokemon or starter that has stuck out to me the most. It's maybe also the only Pokemon that for each main series games I make sure I have at least one in. I really, really love the design and concept behind the Pokemon, and so far there hasn't really been a Pokemon that's topped it for me.
That's a pretty easy answer for me. No-brainer, Suicune. Easily. I always thought it was such a majestic Pokemon. Its ability to purify water and run on water is so cool. Its color is beautiful. It's actually really sleek. And it's a competitive beast, which is really what just draws me to that Pokemon. As someone who plays competitive so much, to have a Pokemon that's good in Gen 3 OU, Gen 4 OU, and still be good throughout the generations no matter what they throw at it, it just means a lot to me.
Well, this is a very easy question. Celebi is my favourite Pokemon, and Celebi is a time traveller who leaps from place to place to put right what once went wrong, each time hoping its next leap would be the leap home. Seriously, Celebi, being a mythical Pokemon around when my site started, it sort of became my favourite Pokemon, and as we learnt more about the motif of it and the backstory of it being time travel. Now, time travel is a very big part of so much of the media that I consume. So it kind of resonates with me, and so that's probably why Celebi is my favourite Pokemon.
My favourite Pokemon changes based on my mood all the time, but I think my favourites right now are probably Roserade and Crocodile. I didn't really like Roserade that much at first. I mean, it was just a cool-looking grass-type Pokemon. But after using a Roserade in X and Y, it eventually became my main Pokemon in X and Y and basically carried me through the game. It was amazing, and I've really grown attached to Roserade now. I just love the flower hair and the whole design aspect of it.
Primarina, because I just love the whole aspect of the mermaid siren Pokemon. It's just so cool. And the fact that it's the first fairy starter Pokemon ever, so yeah, I like Primarina right now. Primarina's cool. So that's my favorite Pokemon.
The deep reasoning why I like Umbreon so much is because Umbreon's a dark-type Pokemon. I've had a pretty, dark life, a lot of things that happened to me in my past. The Golden Rings are to remind me that there's a light at the end of every tunnel, and you can never lose hope. That's pretty much the reasoning why I like Umbreon so much.
I would say my favorite Pokemon is actually Shiny Vikavolt. When its design got released for Generation 7, I thought it looked incredible, and I was just a really big fan of its design overall, but what really kind of put it over the edge for me is I drafted it in a Draft League format, and I ended up winning the championship with Vikavolt on my team, which generally it's not considered to be that good of a competitive Pokemon, so having it go in, putting in work with an agility set and also a choice spec set, just really kind of brought it together for me, as I do love bug Pokemon, and Vikavolt is just right at the forefront there in terms of cool designs, really powerful with its special attack stat, and has kind of a cool backstory for me.
My favorite Pokemon is Piplup. Platinum was the only Pokemon game that I played as a kid, and Piplup was my first Pokemon. I actually used it to beat the entire game, so it's the one that holds the most nostalgic value for me.
There are a lot of Pokemon that I love. Gliscod and Blaziken are two of my favorites, but I think my absolute favorite is probably Snorlax, and it's just the eating and sleeping. I get it. I like to nap, and I like food.
My favorite Pokemon is Chandelure, if you couldn't tell. Pokemon Black and White came out in the last semester of my senior year when I was deep in the thralls of my emo phase, and seeing Litwick with like the wax covering its eye, that I don't know, it's just something I latched onto being in that phase. And considering that, you know, there's the purple flame, and purple's always been my favorite color, it was just kind of like a match made in heaven.
Well, my favorite Pokemon ever since I was younger has been Gengar. It's one of those things where as a kid, like the moment I looked at it, like you ever have one of those moments where you look at something and you're like, that's it, like that's just the one. As a kid, I really had no idea why. It was my favorite color. He's purple, he's fat, he's thick, he's a prankster. I basically just liked Gengar since I was a kid. Before I really had any understanding of what competitive use was, and once I became old enough to understand the importance of competitive use, that just only made it better. So it's just been Gengar since day one, and it's never changed.
So my favorite Pokemon would be Dragonair because 1, it's a dragon type, and 2, it's blue, and 3, it's used by my favorite gym leader, which is Claire from Blackthorn City in Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Alright, so my favorite Pokemon is Yanma. I don't really have any other special reason other than I was just really into bugs when growing up, and dragonflies were my favorite bugs. So when I found out there was a dragonfly Pokemon, I was captivated. From what I remember, the anime episode Wings and Things was a pretty big catalyst too. I spent hours in Ruin Valley catching every Yanma I could find.
My favorite Pokemon is Cyndaquil, and while I don't really have a specific reason as to why it's my favorite, one day I kinda just decided it was my favorite because I've always really liked it, and I've only grown to love it more and more ever since I decided that. It's just a really great Pokemon that I've always enjoyed.
Well, personally, my favorite Pokemon has to be Charizard. I've always loved Charizard as a kid, and over the years I've kind of grown to be a little bit of a closet Charizard fan just because there was a lot of hate coming at that Pokemon, and I just didn't really want to be on the receiving end of that hate. But ever since I really just stopped caring about what people thought of Pokemon, I really just grew to enjoy Charizard as a Pokemon. I mean, what's there not to like about this Pokemon? It's got a great design, great color palette, great shiny, it's based on a freaking dragon. I mean, what's there not to like about Charizard?
My favorite Pokemon is Poliwhirl. Ever since I first played Pokemon Blue back in 1999, it just immediately was a Pokemon I just gravitated to. I liked the look of it, I liked the design. I thought Poliwag was cute, but Poliwhirl, there was just something special about it that just really connected with my imagination, and I just always wanted one of these Pokemon in my real life, even though obviously that's not possible.
Charizard is probably my favorite Pokemon by far. I mean, I don't know if you can tell at all, but I've always loved how tough it looks. I mean, it's a fire-breathing dragon, so... but it probably wouldn't be opposed to some cuddles either. Top 2 advantages of owning a Charizard, 1, it can fly, so say goodbye to traffic on your commute. 2, it's a walking campfire, so you can eat s'mores 24/7, so what's not to love about that?
Mine has gotta be the amazing Piplup and Empoleon. I have the nostalgic connection with this amazing penguin boy. I mean, how could you not love him? He's just adorable. He was my first Pokemon. He started off my adventure, my Pokemon career with a bang. And then, of course, my first fully evolved Pokemon was Empoleon. He just makes me happy. Look at this, it's water steel, he has the trident. It's an amazing combination, and I appreciate that.
Shaman Sky. Although my mascot is Scrafty, since as long as Shaman has existed, it's always had a special place in my heart. It's a grass type, and grass is my favorite type, but I think grass is one of my favorite types because Shaman's my favorite Pokemon, so you know, it kind of goes hand in hand. It's small. I like small Pokemon. You know, small Pokemon are way cooler than the big beastly ones in my opinion. It doesn't look that powerful, but it is. It's really fast and strong, and it has one of the most fun abilities to use in battle, which is Serene Grace. It's just a super smug looking and aesthetically pleasing Pokemon to me, and the only thing I dislike about it is that it's a mythical Pokemon, so I have no way of using it in an official Pokemon tournament.
I definitely have to say Mamoswine. It was Machamp, but once I saw Mamoswine's design in those 4th generation games, I absolutely loved it. It's fantastic, you know. Woolly mammoths are great, and in my first competitive battle, it was 5-1. I had one thing left, Mamoswine. Yeah, took it home for me, and you know, ever since I've loved it.
So my favorite Pokemon definitely has to be Arcanine, which is funny because for the longest time growing up, I actually didn't have a favorite Pokemon. I guess I sort of liked them all equally, but then I remember my first playthrough of Pokemon Red where I exclusively used Arcanine for the entire game. I had always loved its design, and I was in the process of making my YouTube channel, and I needed a mascot, so it had to be Arcanine.
Well, my favorite Pokemon actually started off as Charmander. It was the first starter Pokemon I picked in Pokemon Red when I was about 5 years old, and I fell in love with it instantly. However, when I made my way to Celadon City, I found Eevee. It was a pretty rare Pokemon because it's not really right there for you to find. You actually have to go behind the building, and I thought it was super smart for finding it out, and I fell in love with it instantly. I love the design of it. And then finding out it had 3 whole evolutions as well made me love it even more. And just the fact that it can have a new Pokemon evolution with every new generation, it's just another reason that I love this Pokemon.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and a big thanks to all the wonderful Poketubers that participated. Please check out part 2 right now if you haven't, and make sure to check out the description to understand more about this project and the YouTubers that I interviewed. Of course, make sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified when parts 3, 4, and 5 come out. If you enjoyed, leave a like to show your support for the series. Bye!